Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're bringing you a really neat rifle. It's one that I'm actually really fond of, and actually one I'm keeping. This is the new Galil ACE rifle. This particular one is chambered in 7.62x39mm. This is probably the finest AK-47 type rifle ever made, in my opinion. Prior to this, I would say, the real crown jewels of the AK were either the Finnish Valmet or it was the Israeli Galil. Both being extremely well built, well made. So it's really hard to say, hey, which one was better than the other one. But with the introduction of the new Galil ACE, I definitely say I think this is probably the finest AK in the industry. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on what the Galil is. After the formation of Israel, the Israelis were always dependent upon foreign weapons manufacturers. They did not really have an infrastructure that was built to support their small arms manufacturing, development, ammunition, and whatnot. In the 70s or so, I believe it was in the 70s or early 80s, in that time period there, IMI was created, Israeli Military Industries. Now, the main weapons that were being used by the IDF, the entire Israeli Defense Force, was generally Colt M16A1s. They were rifles that were given to Israel by the United States. They also had several different rifles they bought through foreign military sales. In fact, Colt had even manufactured a specific barrel length for them as well, which I believe it was around 11 or 12 inch, about 12 something inches. I'm not exactly sure of that, but it was an A1. So for many years, that was the main rifle. Well, then comes along IWI Galil, and he manufactures the Uzi submachine gun, which was the very first Israeli-made military weapon. And obviously they took a lot of pride in that, the fact that they finally had their own weapon. But for as far as small arms were concerned, actual rifles, they were still dependent on the United States. So looking at several different designs, IMI looked at the utter reliability that they saw in the AK-47, but they also saw a lot of the shortcomings of the AK-47 as well that they liked on the M16. So what they did was they took the best of both worlds in their opinion, in their eyes, and they combined the two rifles. And what they came up with was known as the Galil. Basically, what you have here is an AK-47 type action. It was the long stroke piston, but what they did was they extended the sight radius by putting the rear sight all the way on the rear of the receiver. The receivers were manufactured from steel. Instead of using the stamp method of the AKM, they decided to go with forgings of steel. Made them extremely durable. They decided to go with an M16A1 type flash suppressor. They also didn't like the way the selector worked on the AK-47. They wanted it ambidextrous. So they went ahead and redesigned that to be ambidextrous as well. The actual cocking handle itself, instead of it's sticking out the way that the AK-47 does, it came up, it's curved. So instead of grabbing like this, you would grab like this and pull it back. And the system that they made was it was rather adaptable. The one that was adopted was actually manufactured in 5.56mm NATO, but it was also available in 7.62 NATO as well. So they had adopted it in both NATO calibers. Now the Galil had seen a very good military career. It was adopted by several countries, including, I believe it was stolen by Australia as their rifle. You'll see a lot of Galils in South America, Central America. The rifle did quite well. And it was a 1980s style assault rifle. It was primarily iron sight only. It had the original 1 in 12 inch twist. It was really pre-NATO. So a couple of years back, the Israelis decided they were going to relook at the Galil and come up with a modernized rifle. At the same time, they'd also released the Tavor, which was their first bullpup. The Tavor had seen military service prior to the development of the ACE rifle. It was actually quite popular. It's done very well with the Israeli military, and there has been some foreign sales of it. But the Galil ACE was a whole redesign of it. And really what the Galil ACE did was, at least in my opinion, it perfected the AK-47. It looked at a lot of its shortcomings, and it corrected them. We're going to take a real close look in here. Now, this one here is the 7.62x39. This rifle here, as you see it, has been adopted by the Vietnamese Army. Not too long ago, the Vietnamese were looking to replace their existing Chinese and Russian AK stocks, which most of them probably would go back to the U.S. Vietnam War, and they were looking at a new weapon. And they, of many countries, really liked the AK-47. It worked very well for them throughout the war in Vietnam, as well as further on. So it appeared as though they were going to be looking for another AK variant. Well, looking at the Galil ACE, they looked at it and said, this is ideal. We can use our existing ammunition, we can use our existing magazines, and we have a rifle that's significantly better, significantly more accurate. So they entered into a licensing agreement with IWI or IMI to actually manufacture the rifles in Vietnam. There's a couple other countries I definitely want to mention where this rifle comes in. One is Chile. I've actually spent quite a bit of time in Chile while working for Colt. I was down there during a time when they were looking at buying M4 carbines. They had bought, I don't know, 500 or so carbines or whatever it was, M4s. I went down there with a coworker, and we went through the rifles with the with what they call IDIC. IDIC is basically their version of Picatinny Arsenal. And we had to go through half of the rifles with them. They wanted to do inspections on them. They did cyclic array testing. They did inspecting bore straightness and all that. And then I conducted an armor school for the M16 M4 series rifle, as well as one for the M203 grenade launcher. And they were definitely in the process. The SIG rifles that they had, they were manufactured under license at FAMI, which FAMI is the Chilean major manufacturer. And they were looking to replace those SIGs because, first of all, they were beat to hell. The Chileans were not really well known for actually maintaining weapons. Most of the guns that I had saw over there, there was no finish left on them. They were worn out. They just really weren't maintained. So over those intervening years, this is probably around 2000. I would say this at least started around 2011, 2012, in that area. And there is when the replacement program started. Many companies were chomping at the bit for this one. Colt was in there with their APC and their M4. FF was in there with their Scarlight. There was a few. I believe SIG was down there as well. And it wasn't until recently when we found out who the winner of that was. And the winner of that was the Galil ACE in 5.56mm. So the Chilean government licensed with IMI or IWI, I keep getting those two mixed up, to gear up for production for that rifle at FAMI, right outside of, right in the Chilean capital. I'm trying to remember what the name of the capital is now. Anyways, it'll come to me later. They began production. They ceased production of the SIG rifles and started manufacturing the Galil ACE rifles. These rifles have also been bought in Colombia. The rifle has been very successful in a very short period of time, and when you look at it, it's very easy to see why. We're going to go over some of the features here. The original Galil had a skeleton steel stock. It was non-adjustable. It was side folding. So when they developed the ACE, they went with a more adjustable type. Like the M16 or M4, you have multiple positions. This also is a cheek riser for use with optics. This is removable. So I have it snapped on here because I have one of the new SIG sights on here as well. And the stock is also foldable. By pushing downward on the stock, it folds over. Now, as you can see, the ejection port cover is clear. This can be fired this way very, very easily. So for somebody who's a paratrooper or somebody who's mounted in a vehicle, the rifle is extremely compact. To decrease in weight a little bit, you still have the milled receiver from a single piece of steel. But if you also notice the lower portion here, we have polymer. So it's actually much lighter. The pistol grip is actually molded into it. The pistol grip is actually hollow. Actually, I'm storing a sight adjustment tool in there as well. You can see that it has a similar AK type magazine release. Now, for as far as magazines, these rifles in the U.S. are provided with Magpul magazines. The reason for that is 922R compliance. There are components on this rifle that are made in the United States and others made in Israel, so it is compliant with 922R. Now, if you were to put a non-American made magazine in here, you probably would be in violation of 922R. So as the rifle leaves the factory from IWI in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the rifle is fully 922R compliant. This, again, 7.62x39. There's other versions as well. We're going to be taking a look in another video on the new 7.62x51 NATO. Just to give you a very brief overview on calibers, there's a few different configurations. Here we have 7.62x39. Then we have the 5.56 variation. There's two of them that I'm aware of. The first one utilizes a standard Galil magazine, which is more of the AK style magazine. The second one is they have a version that utilizes the standard M16 magazine. That was the model that was actually purchased by the Chilean army. And the 308 version, there's also two different magazines as well. There's one that takes the original Galil 7.62 51mm magazine, and the second one takes the SR25 magazine. That's the one that's being imported into the United States right now. The 5.56mm has not yet been imported into the United States. I'm not sure what the logic was behind what calibers they released first, second, and third. But I actually do expect to see SHOT Show the 5.56mm versions. Here we actually have a handguard. By actually depressing and sliding off, we have three 1913 rails, 1, 2, 3 on the other side, where you can attach any kind of the device that you would want. Slide that back on. Come on. Now we have a continuous 1913 rail on the top. As you can see, we have a much longer sight radius than you do with an AK. Here we have an AK version, so you can actually see the difference between the sight radius between the two. As you can see, you have a very short front sight radius on an AK type rifle. Here you have it's much longer. Sights, you decide to go with the M16 type sights instead of having the notch in the rear. Back in the rear here, they actually have an L-shaped aperture, just like the regular M16 with a long range and a short range aperture. One of the things we want to take a look at here is the actual mechanism itself. The AK-47, when you take the safety off, you have the entire mechanism is actually open for debris. The Galil ACE, the original Galil was the same way. You had access to dirt and following everything that could fall into the receiver. If you notice here, there's no lever on the side. The actual safety is ambidextrous, and it's actually actuated by the thumb. When we look over to the left-hand side, we see the cocking handle. But if you also notice, as we pull the cocking handle back, we have a if you want to call it a dust cover. As you pull it back, it drops down. So what the Galil ACE has done is completely closed the system. There's absolutely no way for any kind of debris or anything to get into this mechanism. By way of the receivers. The magazine well actually fits rather tight, and I have to say that I've been trying quite a few magazines with it. It does work very well. I'm going to have to use my cheat sheet here. The magazines that were tested with it, the ones that work without a problem were the Russian steel, East German steel, Chinese Bakelite, Soviet Bakelite, Polish polymer, CAA polymer, Israeli Ultimag, Magpol, ProMag polymer black. The ones that would not fit were the Bulgarian waffle polymer, the Tapco, the ProMag, and the US Palm. Oddly enough, a majority of the magazines that did not fit were the American-made magazines. In fact, many of the ProMags and the Tapcos, I have many rifles that are chambered in this caliber, even AKs, that they won't fit in. They're either too wide to actually fit in the magazine well, or they actually won't rock in place and lock. For the most part, I had found that the magazines, the Galil ACE was not choosy at all. But this is a very important feature of the Galil, is again having closed up the entire system. So on the left hand side, again, we have the dust cover, and you can see we have the safe and fire on here as well. So again, ambidextrous. Now looking at the front sights, you have a post front sight. You see how high up it sticks. Now, the neat thing about it here is you can see there's a glass vial of tritium in here, so you have a night sight here. There's two different adjustment planes here. One is for the bottom is one you actually adjust the windage up and down, and then you can rotate the top one. So once you have your adjustment for height, you can rotate just the top so you can have it lined up properly with your tritium post. Looking in your rear sight, you can actually see the 2 vials of tritium in there as well. So shown right here is the tritium with the short range aperture, the larger aperture. Then you flip down, now we have the longer range aperture. The rifle is completely solid. There is nothing rattling on this thing whatsoever. You can also see the A2 style flash suppressor. Now this barrel is a chrome lined hammer forged barrel. This is all manufactured with the latest in manufacturing techniques. Again, the U.S. is probably one of the few countries that does not like to use the hammer forged barrels. These are imported by IWI US in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The barreling is actually a 1 turn in 9.45 inch twist. It's actually marked on here as well that it has a cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel, and the H3 on here means H3 is actually the atomic number, I believe, for tritium. Now for disassembly, this is much like any AK. So we're going to disassemble, take a look at it here. You push in on the rear of the spring guide, and we're going to lift upward. Push in and lift out. The rifle actually comes with a buffer or a shock buff on the back, which actually, when the bolt comes to the rear, it dampens it and it saves wear and tear on the rifle as well as the receiver and the bolt carrier itself. So we actually have the bolt and the bolt carrier. Very similar to an AK. You can see all chrome plated in here. Again, the machining is what you would expect out of anything coming out of Israel. Now you can remove the gas tube itself. You'll notice that we have a heat shield inside here around the barrel. This is a vast improvement over the Kalashnikov, where you would have the wooden handguard, which once it gets hot enough, it actually would catch on fire. So it's got an excellent heat shield. You'll also notice inside of the gas block here is chrome plated as well. Which is awesome for as far as reliability and durability. Easier to clean when the time comes. Also, you have chrome on chrome, which creates more of a lubricious property to it when it heats up. Next thing we're going to talk about is the gas system itself. This is not the kind of a rifle that you're really going to want to put a sound suppressor on. I'm going to give you some reasons behind that. I actually have tried not this specific rifle, but there was another rifle that I had tried with one of my silencer coke cans, and I was getting failures to feed. Basically, with an AK like this, you have your piston that slides right into the gas block, and as you can imagine, you have some wiggle play that goes into here. So, in order to have this rifle operate properly, you must over-gas it, because as you're blowing the bolt back, you're getting leakage out of the sides. So between losing the gas from the leak, as well as the massive operating ride that it's bringing back, you have to over-gas the system. That's where you get a lot of your reliability from as well. If you look at some of the other guns, such as the HK416 or the Colt LE6940P or the LMT, you will notice that they actually use gas rings on the actual piston itself as it slides into the gas block. What that does is enables you to use a lot less gas. By sealing up the chamber, it requires less gas to actually operate it, where with the typical AK system, as you see here, it requires more gas. So when you have a highly gas firearm to start with, now we're going to switch over to a suppressor where we're going to increase that even more. So generally what's going to happen is you're going to drive the bolt carrier back at such a high rate of fire that the magazine spring is not going to be able to keep the shot column up with getting the next round up there, and you're actually going to have a failure to feed. Or you'll run into stovepipe malfunctions, which is what I ran into. I actually ran into both failures to feed and stovepipes with the can. Taking the can off, it was not a problem. This is not the type of a rifle that you would put a can on. This is a basic assault rifle like an AK. AKs are generally not can friendly. Obviously, with the Russian guns and the Eastern European guns, you have barrel concentricity issues and things like that, which cause problems with cans, where you would not have that with a gun like this. But yeah, if you're looking to have a rifle with a can, this is not going to be your option. So let's talk a little bit more about who's using this gun and why. Again, if you look at the Galil, as we probably stated before, it by today's standards, it was very much obsolete due to the fact that there was no way to actually put really optics on it. You were taking advantage of any of the better materials and so forth. You had the old 1 and 12-inch twist barrels. It was very much a 1980s or 70s type assault rifle. But the Galil ACE really did bring it into the next generations by having the ability to mount optics. But at the same time, you had the legendary AK reliability. If you consider a lot of the militaries who adopted this, for instance, the Vietnamese army, the Chilean army, all of them are basically conscript militaries, where they're looking for basically an assault rifle, something that they're not going to have to take a lot of care of, which, when we talk about guns like the M16 and such, one of the things that we talk a lot about is a professional soldier. A professional soldier gets a rifle that is more accurate, it's reliable, but it's more of a precision instrument. Where again, the AKs, I always like to consider them more of a blunt stick when you compare them to several of the other kinds of ones that are out there. So with the Galil, you sort of bridge both worlds between, you have the utter reliability and durability of the AK-47, with having an increased accuracy due to your sight radius, yet having the ability to put on your optic. There's absolutely no question that when you would compare this to this AKM that we have here, this is going to be a far more accurate rifle. It's going to have the same durability and reliability, but you have the top rail, you have the better sights, you have a completely sealed off system compared to the AK, where you still can get trash in through here. You have this, a side folding stock such as this, but you also have adjustable. You have an ability to snap on the cheek weld. So you're really getting a lot of the benefits of this, but you're getting extremely higher refined. Of course, you're looking at a gun that's probably worth about $400 here versus one you're going to pay about $1,800 for here, because these are not equals on any part. You're looking at an excellent hammer forged barrel, chrome plated barrel versus the standard barrel you see on the average AK. You're looking at cheaper stamped sheet metal versus a milled receiver. The attention to detail in the manufacturing process to these is totally night and day. The magazine compatibility, I would definitely say, is the same. But again, we're able to take a rifle that's just brutally reliable and duplicate it and enhance it several times over, so you can actually get better accuracy and better ergonomics. Being able to have the extra safety for as far as left-handed. Now, when you fire this rifle, left or right-handed doesn't matter. The way the fire cartridge cases eject, they will bounce forward. So right or left-handed does not make a difference. You will not be penalized with this one at all. It's definitely what you would expect to come out of IMI and the Israeli military. We're looking forward to seeing some of the other models coming up. We're going to be doing one on the Galil ACE in 7.62 NATO, and we're expecting after SHOT Show, probably between January and March, we're going to see the first of the 5.56mm Galil ACEs come in. Speaking with the guys from IWI, it's going to be basically the model the Chileans bought, which is going to be accepting the Stenag regular AR-15 M16 magazine rather than the standard Galil magazine. So we're looking forward to that. This happens to be one of my favorite magazines I've been messing with recently. This actually comes from Fab Defense, the Mako group, but it's actually an Israeli-made Ultimag for the AK-47. As you can see, it has a lot of mag pull in it, where you can actually see the cartridges that are inside of it. It's a very durable, heavy-duty plastic. For as far as fitting in the rifle, it fits in just fine, nice and tight. This is a really neat magazine. We're going to be trying this rifle at the range with a few different types of magazines. So we're going to have the mag pull, we're going to have some of the steel magazines. So let's take it to the range and see how she does. We're now going to put the Galil ACE 7.62x39 through its paces. The optic chosen here was the SIG Romeo 7, which is very similar to a typical aim point, very, very high quality. The interesting thing about this little test is going to be is we got some different magazines we're going to test. We got the Magpul Gen 3, we got an Ultimag, we got a CAA, and we got a couple steel magazines. That's usually the interesting thing, is to see what magazines, for as far as the compatibility. And I really have to say, I think this is probably the finest AK ever built. So we're going to give a try the Magpul magazine. This is actually the Gen 3 magazine. It's got the steel inserts with Wolf ammunition. Now we're going to try the Ultimag with the Winchester defense ammunition. This magazine here is the CAA. This is new at the SHOT Show here in 2016. This is with Hornady ammunition. This is the 123 grain. I have to say, the recoil, I think it shoots a lot softer than your average AK. This magazine here is also with the same Hornady ammunition. This is a Soviet block standard steel AK magazine. And this is also a Soviet-made magazine with the same Hornady SST ammunition. Overall, a very, very pleasant shooting rifle, and it did fire every single one of those magazines without a hitch. So as far as saying this rifle is magazine sensitive, I don't think so. I think it'll pretty much shoot any good quality magazine that's out there. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to doing some more videos on the Galil. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and please subscribe. Thank you.